Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel 1971 War Book Series. Today we are going to talk to Air Commodore Mirza Ali Vayu Sena Medal regarding the ever very popular Meghna Heli Bridge operations conducted by the Indian Air Force during the Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971. Air Commodore Mirza Ali Vayu Sena Medal had served in the Bangladesh Liberation War as a flying officer, and he served directly under the legendary helicopter pilot of the Indian Air Force, the legendary Mi-4 helicopter pilot of the Indian Air Force, Squadron Leader Pushp Kumar Ved Veer Chakra, who was back then in 71 Flight Lieutenant Pushp Kumar Ved. Flying Officer Mirza Ali has a total number of 8,000 flying hours in his entire career in the Indian Air Force, starting his career by flying the Mi-4 helicopters, including teaching young pilots to fly, being a qualified flying instructor, also taking part in carrying VVIPs in the country, and also in the Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971 he had taken part in airlifting the 4-5 Gurkha rifles across the Surma River to Sylhet, including taking part in transporting an entire Indian Army brigade across the Meghna River, the huge mighty Meghna River, and also reaching to witness the surrender ceremony on the 16th of December at Dhaka. He was there right in front of the surrender ceremony that was taking place in Dhaka, and he had witnessed it all. He had witnessed how Niazi's hand was trembling while writing his name, signing the document itself. As a matter of fact, I had conducted this interview of Air Commodore Mirza Ali right on the 16th of December 2025 on the very popular Vijay Divas. So let's welcome Air Commodore Mirza Ali to talk about his experiences in the Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971. First of all, sir, I would like you, Air Commodore Ali Mirza Ali Vayu Sena Medal, to this program today to talk a bit about yourself and the helicopter operations in the Bangladesh war that you were a part of. And first of all, we are doing this program today on Vijay Divas itself. So first of all, a happy Vijay Divas to you, sir.
Thank you, same to you.
And now, sir, I would like you to go a bit about yourself and your family background before you joined the Indian Air Force.
Yeah, I was from like I wrote to you that I'm from a middle class, lower middle class family. We were five siblings, four brothers, one sister. We lived in a two-bedroom apartment with a toilet outside. Where, seven people sharing one toilet. You don't know what the problems are. And we didn't have a fridge, we didn't have fans, we did not have gas. My mother cooked on earthen pots on firewood, which was tasty. So every day we ate fresh food because there was no fridge. So that was a good point of it. Sundays was not for going out to the pubs because those days the pubs were not there and no outing with the friends, but it was mostly for washing and ironing for the next week.
Okay.
I got no complaints, and I'm happy that I went through that life. Because now I realize what I went through is worth it, and I don't say everybody should go through it, but some should go through it to understand and value money and value friendship and value family life.
Right,
My
sir.
parents were very good, and they gave us good value, life's values imbibed in us, and we were very happy family. We didn't fight much. And I was studying in Borden Boys High School, and after that, my brother got admitted in a professional college medical. So my parents couldn't afford a second professional college for me, so I was doing BCom, which I did not like very much. So I started something more adventurous. So I applied for the Jaipur Flying Club, subsidized flying by the government. And at the same time, my friend gave me the advertisement because we did not subscribe to papers. So he gave me this paper which says join the Air Force. So I applied for it. And I got selected for both the flying school and the Air Force. But I preferred the Air Force to the. I had no idea what flying was. I had never flown in an
So you
aeroplane.
were in Jaipur Flying Club and also for the Air Force also.
Jakur
Jakur.
is Jakur is a small little airfield outside Bangalore.
Okay.
But now that it is defunct because flyover has come there, there is not much of place for takeoff and landing. So I don't know what has happened to that school. Anyway, I went to Coimbatore for my training, and from training in 1965 March, thereafter we went to various different training establishments, and 65 war broke out, so all the instructors were pulled out to the war front, and everywhere the training was held up.
Okay.
So it was a telescopic effect. Every training got delayed, and we got commissioned after 2 years, 9 months, which is as compared to the present generation where they get a commission in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a stipend also. No, we didn't get a stipend. We had to get money from home
Okay.
for our daily needs like toiletries and if you wanted to go out to town. Anyway, from Coimbatore, I went to Nagpur to learn flying. I flew the L5 and I did my solo in 11 hours 40 minutes.
You were selected for the helicopters or any other, sir?
No, we go through, everybody goes through the same training.
Okay.
Fixed wing aircraft, then on to Allahabad HT2. And from HT2, we went to Jodhpur, Allahabad to Jodhpur for the Texan T6G, which was the Second World War aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
And here we were taught how to do aerobatics, formation flying, night flying, navigation. And from there, we are trifurcated. As per your requirement or as per the recommendation of the instructor, you were sent to fighters, transport, or helicopters. Fighter people went to Hakimpet on vampires, and transport people went to Begumpet and Yelahanka for Dakota flying,
Mm-hmm.
and helicopters went again to Hakimpet on the Chetak helicopter.
Chetak. Acha.
Yeah, we passed out as helicopter pilots, and we got posted to Tezpur 110, which was situated in Tezpur, with a detachment at Kumbhgram, which is in South Kachar, South Assam. We will go to Kumbhgram for detachment,
Okay.
but since the uprising of the measles was quite a bit, so they moved the unit from Tezpur to Kumbhgram permanently. And did not have any infrastructure there. We were living in bashas made out of bamboos. Okay. The offices, the living quarters, and the mess, everything was in bashas. Today, of course, it's a full-fledged station. And I learned a lot of flying there because Mizo Hill offers you helipads of various sizes and various altitudes for you to master the art of helicopter flying.
Okay.
We did a lot of flying, and we got just before the war, we were all operationally deemed fit. And September itself, we started doing a detachment at Teliamora, which is east of Agartala, where FOCO under General Sagat Singh had moved in.
And this was which helicopters you were mostly operating, sir?
Me-4 helicopters.
Me-4.
It's a 14-cylinder engine, radial engine, and it did not have any GPS, no weather radar, no autopilot, and it was on the last legs of its life. So I don't know how we managed. We all were youngsters between 23 and 25 years of age, except for the flight commander, the CEO, who were in the 30s. And we did not have much flying experience on the type, just about 200 hours, and not much of night flying experience. Anyway, we started in September, and we continued flying there, helping the army, supplying the army with ammunition, ration, and evacuating casualties because we were already in East Pakistan.
Right.
That is why, if you remember, Indira Gandhi did not allow any UN observers there because we were already inside East Pakistan. But we moved to Agartala when we had captured Akhora, which is close to Agartala, because it was otherwise within the shelling distance of Pakistani artillery.
This was after 3rd December, right, sir?
Yeah. No, this is much before that.
Much before,
This is much
okay.
before that, yeah. At the same time, there were some Pakistani pilots who were defected from Pakistan Air Force and joined up with Mukti Bahini as freedom fighters. And Group Captain Chandan Singh was given the task of training them
Acha.
on the Chetak helicopter and the auto aircraft.
Aircraft.
So once Sultan Mahmud was
He became later Air Vice Marshal of Bangladesh Air Force.
Yeah, and he became the chief of Bangladesh Force. And 2015, I was detailed by headquarters after my retirement to represent Air Force in the Victory Day celebration in Dhaka.
Acha, acha.
So in the evening, I asked the defense attaché, they can get General Mahmood, Air Vice Marshal Mahmood here. He's got him there for the party, and I met him, and he recognized me and my commanding officer,
Acha.
and we had a good discussion about the good old days.
So could you talk a bit about the kilo flights, sir? I mean, I think that's what they were called.
Yeah, they were trained in Dimapur,
Hmm.
and Indian engineers had done the jugaad by mounting rockets and guns onto these helicopter and auto aircraft, and they were trained how to fire also.
Acha.
So, so on 3rd December, when Indira Gandhi declared war,
Mm-hmm.
and these two people, that is Sultan Mahmud with squadron leader Singla from Indian Air Force in a Chetak helicopter, and Flight Lieutenant Alam with Flight Lieutenant Goshal on the auto aircraft, both took off from Kumbhigram at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the Chetak went to Dhaka, Narayanganj oil refinery. They blew it up.
Right, right, right.
And the auto aircraft went with Flight Lieutenant Alam and Flight Lieutenant Goshal
Hmm.
to Chittagong and blew up the Chittagong refinery.
Right, right.
And after that only the war was declared, and
And sir, did you take part in training them or knowing them?
I didn't take part. I didn't take part because we were involved with the army most of the time. As the army was advancing, there were more casualties, so we were bringing back mostly casualties.
No, no. I mean, training them before the war started, anything like that.
They, that was done by Group Captain Chandra Singh and his people, not by us.
Okay.
We only met up in Agartala whenever we could find time to talk to each other when we were not flying.
Acha.
And remember, there was no mess, there was no place for having a bath or shaving. We lived in overalls for 13 days. Thankfully, the war got over in 13 days. I don't know if it had continued, how we would have managed without food, without proper sleep.
Hmm.
But nobody complained. Why, I tell you, because the people who were the generals and Group Captain Chandan Singh, leaders, they were the first to get into a helicopter. And this was not an exercise, this was a war.
War.
And these were the people who were first in the helicopter with the Jawans. So with them leading by example, we couldn't refuse. None of us ever refused because we didn't say we are tired, we didn't have proper food, we did not have proper sleep. Nobody refused. Everybody was willing. And remember, during war there's a blackout. No villages are no lighting.
Mm-hmm.
The roads, no traffic. You cannot make a what is the road line, what is the road.
Mm-hmm.
So navigation becomes difficult. And we
Navigation.
being youngsters, without GPS, without autopilot, without weather radar, we still did not drop a troop in any enemy territory for them to be massacred. Okay, and we normally land when we're doing night flying in a country, we do it with flare path, that is runway lit with lights, or with goosenecks.
Mm-hmm.
Goosenecks is nothing but a tin contraption with oil in it, with a big thick wick in it, and it lights up. Here there was no chance of them having goosenecks. So somebody would light a small little fire, and only with one fire we would manage to go land, take off within 30 seconds, because the next helicopter was landing behind us.
Mm-hmm.
So we continued throughout the night, throughout the day, flying. Sometimes there was a lull because the troops were being pushed very hard. They were tired, so they took time to come to the helipad. So in that few moments, we used to grab a shutter in the helicopter itself. And the Bengalis, Bangladeshis used to bring us some food
Acha, acha.
and used to help us lift, load and unload the aircraft.
This was
Initially,
in
we
Sylhet
were-
side, or sir, crossing the Meghna also.
That was on the 7th. We started from the 7th, 8th, and 9th. We did the Sylhet drop. And there was a big commotion there because when we landed the first platoon there, about 30 to 50 people. Then Group Captain Chandan Singh was flying the Albert at about 5,000 feet, and he could see the tracer bullet coming towards us.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, at night you will be sitting ducks, no flying at night. So there was a big discussion with the brigade commander and Chandan Singh, and eventually Chandan Singh said, okay, because they had not taken the signals equipment, they had not taken ammunition, they had not taken ration. He said, those people will get massacred, so please send. So Chandan Singh agreed to send one helicopter on a suicidal mission. So my flight commander, Flight Lieutenant Wade, took one pilot, went there, and didn't have any problem. Of course, there was a lot of shooting onto the helicopter. They came back with a lot of bullet holes, but he says, get airborne. So everybody started, and we started flying in the night. So we lifted about quite a bit of troops and the numbers I think I'm not very sure about because now 54 years since it happened. And if we continue with that, once this was successful, and remember we were only one battalion against a brigade. A brigade is 3,000 people, and a
That
brigade
was
is only
4-5 Gurkha rifles, I guess. That
four or five good people. Okay, so and the BBC helped us by brigade is being launched by Indian Army.
Acha.
Actually, it was only one battalion, and that helped us overcome the thing of fighting a bigger force.
Acha, acha.
Once that was successful, General Sagat Singh now realized, once he was told, do not cross the Meghna, stay east of Meghna by General Arora and General Manik Shah.
Acha.
He said, if I see a window of opportunity, I will exploit it. And he did that. And he, since this heliborne operation, the first of its kind in the world, did it, he used it now from from Barman Baria to Narsingdi, Barman Baria to Raipura. These places he dropped. And Meghna River at places as broad as 10 to 12 kilometers. So going in the boats would have been difficult and would have been time consuming.
Very much.
And whenever we found defense was very strong, the pillboxes were very nicely built. They had enough time to build the pillboxes. And we, when we went into one of the pillboxes after the Pakistani army had run away, we found that there was enough ammunition and food to last them for another 2 months. Yet they surrendered. I do not know why.
Okay.
Okay, and of course, in Barman Baria, when we were landing, we found a lot of vultures. So when we landed and we switched off and the downwash of the rotor had stopped, we got the stench. When we asked the local people, what is the smell? And they said, sir, these people rounded up all the Bengalis and shot them.
Pakistanis.
Yeah. So that was the stench of human flesh, rotting. Anyway, we finished that, and this was by the 11th or 12th of December, and we were quite close to Dhaka now, and there was a lull for 2 days, I think. Then we were on the 14th and 15th, we were sitting in Agartala, biding our time, and whatever time we could catch a nap. And the food was mostly from the army langar, puris and sabji, and chakar, that's all. So, 16th, we got to know there was a lot of activity going on, but we were not told, we were very junior to be involved in the top people discussion. But we got information that there were aircrafts landing. A lot of reporters, a lot of TV news people, and not TV, of course, TV was not there in those days. Mostly it was reporters, foreign and Indian. And then top generals and air marshals and vice admirals started landing. Then we realized there's something happening. And you must have heard about Soman, how he brought General Jacob from Calcutta to Soman. It happens to be my coastmate.
Okay.
He told me about that story, that how he was sitting alone in Dhaka airfield, airport, with all the guns pointing at him, and General Jacob had been whisked away by the car which was sent by General Niazi. Okay, so he was all alone sitting there. He was absolutely tense because he said, any crack fellow shoot at him, gone.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so we were told, get ready and make a flight plan to go to Dhaka. So since Kurmitala and Tezgong airports had been damaged by fighters, the only machine that can go there was helicopter. So we took all the top people like General Arora, Admiral Krishnan, Vice Admiral Krishnan, Air Marshal Diwan, General Sagat Singh, General Rocky, General Gonzalez, General Krishna Rao. We took them in our helicopters and went to Dhaka. About 4:30 we landed.
So you were carrying also these people at the same time, right, sir?
Yeah, and my flight commander was told only take the pilots who are going to fly and leave all the pilots behind. He said, I'm not going to obey this order because my boys have taken so much of trouble in flying in all these days. Why should they miss out on witnessing the surrender ceremony of once in a lifetime?
Right.
So he smuggled all the pilots in each aircraft. He said, whenever you can sit and go. We went there, landed there at 4:30, and I do not know how I went to the race course to witness the surrender ceremony. They just took us, the Bengalis, and they were shouting of Joy Bangla, Joy India Zindabad, Murdabad to Pakistan, all that happened. Anyway, we saw the surrender ceremony, and coming back again, I do not know how we came back. We came back and got into a helicopter, and the return journey was by night. Came back to Agartala. There was absolutely celebration and whatnot. After the surrender ceremony, since the runways were bombed and there were potholes, fixed wing couldn't go there. So we had to carry the electricians, the plumbers, the various department people, because Pakistani before surrendering have damaged all the water pipelines, the electrical cables, everything. So we had to take these technicians to repair them, to restore normalcy for telephone lines and water pipelines and electrical connections. Once the runways were repaired, the fixed wing took over. The Caribous and the Dakotas started landing there. We were now moved to Chittagong and Cox's Bazar, that is south of Bangladesh, to help the newly formed Bangladesh army to take them into Chittagong hill tracks in search of these Razakas who were on the run. Razakas are the paramilitary force of Pakistan, and they were on the run to Burma. So we were taking people onto various helipads in Chittagong hill tracks to apprehend them. What happened, whether they apprehended them or not, I do not know, because by March 31st, there were slogans in Dhaka, Indians go home. So it was surprising. Anyway, that's my part of the thing. And after that, we continued to be in Cox's Bazar helping the Bangladesh newly formed thing. And in Chittagong, I did meet some of the Pakistani officers. And I said, how do you feel? I'm the victor and you're vanquished. They had no regrets. They said, sir, we had a very good time. Obviously,
could you repeat that, sir? Could you repeat that? What did they say?
They said we had a very good time. There were no regrets. Then when JCO told me, he says the Pakistan officer let us down. The Pakistan JCO and the Sipahi is quite good, but it's the officer class who have now let them down. You see, they are more interested in becoming chairman of some NGO, some big company. They're not bothered about tactics. They're not bothered about war. They are the people who let the army, Pakistan Sipahi and the Jawan NCOs down.
Right.
And remember, they were armed, we were not armed. They were given arms by Sagat Singh to protect themselves against the Bengalis because he thought they would lynch them. We were not armed, they were armed. Anyway, that's minor point. And by March, we had pulled out, and there were a lot of souvenirs picked up by pilots, which some of them picked up grenades, some of them picked up rifles. And our flight commander said, please get rid of it, don't bring this. So we got rid of it because eventually one fellow actually got himself burned by the grenade went off accidentally. By July, I got posted out from there to Jammu, so that was my end of. But if Bangladesh has to owe its independence to one man, it should be to Sagat Singh. He was a maverick general who thought out of the box, and it is to his credit that that is why, because he disobeyed orders of not to cross the Mekong River, that he was not given a command of a corps or a command, and he was not given any award except for a wound medal which he got. That is also because when he was searching for a helipad from 5,000 feet in a Chetak helicopter with my CO and my flight commander and one more general, he thought he was over Indian territory and he told the pilot to descend from 5,000 to 1,000 feet. When he descended to 1,000 feet, there was a burst of 36 bullets went into that helicopter.
Okay.
One grazed him here, to General Sagat Singh, it grazed him here. Okay, and another one got embedded next to my flight commander's head in the seat. The pilot was hit on his shoulder, so he collapsed. So the co-pilot took over the controls, quickly climbed to 5,000 feet and came back.
So who were these pilots and co-pilots, sir?
Pilot was Sidhu, my coursemate, and his co-pilot was Sahi.
Flight Lieutenant
Sahi,
Sidhu and Flight Lieutenant Sahi.
yeah. Sahi died in America, where he had migrated to. Sidhu died in India only. And they came back. Sidhu was admitted to the hospitals. And General, after getting down, he said, "There's the next helicopter." He was back into air again.
That's
That man was I can't imagine a man with his caliber. They don't make generals like him anymore. Yeah, any more questions from you?
a bit more after the 1971 war, sir, like a bit of your career, and of course you were invited in Dhaka, as you have mentioned. I would like to know a bit about that before we conclude, sir.
Okay, I went from there to Jammu for 6 months only because from 6 months, within 6 and I'm flying the same MiFo helicopter, but it was at higher altitudes,
Okay.
at Gurez and Badab, which is at 2.4 kilometers.
Okay.
Okay. To cross over to that Kanzalwan Valley, we had to cross Rajasthan Pass, which is at 3 to 3.5 kilometers.
Okay.
From there, I got posted to Tambaram to do my instructor's course. I became an instructor and passed out in June 1973 and went to academy as an instructor, teaching pilots, ab initio pilots, how to fly. Okay. And from there, I got posted back to Jodhpur, where I flew the MiFo again, and I got my Vayu Sena medal there
Acha,
for
acha.
distinguished service. I did 4 years in Jodhpur and quite a bit of hours. I did a lot of flood relief, I did a lot of conversion so pilots were coming from fighters and transport aircraft onto the helicopters. I converted them. And from there, I got posted to 109, which was in Chandigarh, and we moved to Hindon because they wanted the helicopters to be in Hindon, so I moved the unit to Hindon, that is close to Delhi, in Mohan Nagar.
Okay, and this was the same Mi-4 helicopter.
No, this is Mi-8 now. This is Mi-8.
Okay.
Mi-4 finished off. A little bit I will tell you, during the war in 1971, the senior pilots from our unit in March 71 had been sent to Russia for training on Mi-8.
Okay.
Okay. They came back in December and they came to Agartala. They want to take part in the war.
Okay.
Ved said, "No. You are all Mi-8, you stay with Mi-8. I'm going to use my youngsters only." He had full faith in us and we did not let him know. Anyway, in Mi-8 in Hindon, I graduated to become A Master Green, that is the highest category you can hold. And I was cleared for VVIP flying. I did a lot of range firing, I did a lot of conversion flying, I did a lot of VIP flying. And we did live past on Rashtrapati Bhavan on 26th Jan. Twice, not once, twice I did. And I had the privilege of landing in Rashtrapati Bhavan, and that's the first and only last landing. I think after that, no landing has ever been done there because they wanted to do it like in America when they bring the president or the dignitaries right to the White House lawns. I landed close to the Jaipur pillar next to the steps of the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and I felt it was too dangerous for a VIP to be doing this restricted approach landing. So that was the first and last time anybody landed in the Rashtrapati Bhavan.
Okay.
Then after, from there, I went to Guwahati. In Guwahati, I was the command examiner. I used to give categorization and pilots ratings of full East Air Command helicopters pilot. And from there, I went to Kanikobar in a helicopter without GPS, without weather radar, just a minimal autopilot, crossing the Bay of Bengal from Rangoon to Port Blair.
Okay.
Okay, it was something extraordinary because today with GPS you can go anywhere, but we did not have GPS. Okay. So not once, twice I did it. First time was for a tri-service exercise in Andamans, where Defence Minister Venkatraman was the Defence Minister and he was witnessing the tri-service exercise. The second time was in 1984 when I went there to carry Indira Gandhi from Kanikobar to Pygmalion Point because she wanted to make Pygmalion Point the southernmost tip of India and not Kanyakumari.
Okay.
So I took her there where she put a pillar stating this is the southernmost tip of India. That is called Indira Point, and Indira Call is in Siachen Glacier, the northernmost tip of India.
Mm-hmm.
That's called Indira Call.
Indira call.
Yeah. So both the places I've been to the easternmost place, that is Vijayanagar, and the westernmost place, Nalia. So I've seen north, south, east, west of India. Okay. And from Guwahati, I used to do what is known as the Diamond Jubilee year,
Mm-hmm.
60 years of Air Force. I used to do what is known as the lead the formation for fly past. Lead the formation in the form of leading with the Air Force flag at most of the stations, Jorhat, Kalikunda, Guwahati, Aizawl, Shillong, everywhere, Tezpur, everywhere I was the lead helicopter. Okay, from there I went back to Hindon as examiner, Air Force examiner. That means we examine all the pilots in the Air Force, helicopter pilots, give them category and rating as per their experience and the performance. And we're doing for Army Aviation also because at that time they had not set up their own setup, so we were doing it for them.
Acha, acha, acha.
From there, I went to Iraq for 2 years. I was teaching Iraqis how to fly. I'm not knowing Arabic, they do not know English, but I still taught them how to fly.
Acha, acha. The Me-8s.
No, it was on McDonnell Douglas 500 and 530.
Okay.
Then I came back to India and I was posted to Allahabad as a chief flying instructor in a training establishment on HPT 32. HAL built HPT 32. From there, I got my rank and I took over helicopter unit in Bangalore, my hometown. I commanded for 2.5 years. From there, I went back to Allahabad as chief operational officer looking after flying.
Okay.
And from there, I got to command a base in Nagpur for 1.5 years. From there, I got my rank to Air Commodore and went to Leh as a AOC, Air Officer Commanding Leh. I was there for 1.5 years. Then from there, I got posted to Bangalore because I asked for Bangalore because I was retiring in February 2001. So I said I want a home posting for my resettlement. I came here as Deputy Director General of NCC Karnataka and Goa.
Okay.
And from there, I retired. I did not sit at home. I still did some work. My friend, my coachmate was the chief test pilot of HAL. So he said, "Why are you sitting at home? Come and fly with the Rotary Wing Academy of HAL and teach youngsters how to fly helicopters."
Mm-hmm.
So I went there and flew for some time on the Schweizer 300, a piston engine, small two-seater helicopter. From there, he pulled me to a simulator company in Bangalore itself called Hats Off Helicopter Academy to train by simulation of flying. Hats Off, the acronym is Hats Off. He called me there and I went there, served from 2010 till 2018. Then I said, I'm giving it up. I want to enjoy my retired life. How much more am I going to work? So I retired. But they still haven't left me. They still ask me to take classes for them for pilots in the South India. That is called CRM, Crew Resource Management classes. I'm still taking on an as and when required basis, not on a regular basis. As and when the people require, they'll ring me up. I will arrange for the class and I will take the class. That's all my career. And I just completed my 80th birthday last February.
Wow.
Okay, nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you, sir. And like before we conclude, I would like to know a bit about your Dhaka experience when you were invited there.
Yeah, because you see, what happened is most of the time they were sending fighter pilots there. Now, fighter pilots they did not have the feet in the ground in Bangladesh,
Right, right.
in Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they used to bomb from Tezpur, Guwahati, Hashimara, and go back to the bases.
Mm-hmm.
We were in with our feet on the ground in Dhaka, in East Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
So this time when they detailed me, when I went there and I started talking about nursing, Bharman Bharia, the people were surprised, how do you know these names? I said, I've been operating from here.
Acha, acha.
So when I met General Mahmood,
Air Marshal Mahmood, right.
Sultan Mahmood, yeah. Of course, now he's grown a beard, he's grown a long kurta pajama, he's no defense officer looking like. But he recognized me and my commanding officer, and we were very happy to reconnect after so many years. And they looked after us very well. They looked after us very well, and we 16th December we had to go to the War Memorial to pay our respects there, where the Prime Minister and the President came.
Yes, sir.
And then in the evening, it was at home in the President's house, where a separate tent was kept for the 1971 war heroes. And the President and the Prime Minister came and spoke to us personally. And
Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina.
Sheikh Hasina, yeah. And we were taken to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's house and then to his museum, which was made a museum where all the bullet wounds where he was shot on the stairs.
Right, right.
The bullet wounds are still there, but now they've destroyed his house. I don't know why. It's surprising that a country now is going to become friendly with Pakistan, who have raped a woman and who have killed the people, and they're going to become friends again. I can't imagine this. What's happening?
Did you see any atrocities, any sign of atrocities, sir, other than the one you have mentioned? Any signs, other signs of atrocities done by the Pakistanis?
They killed many of our Jamans and left them to die without giving them a proper burial. They just tied their hands behind the back and shot them. And I will tell you one more thing. On 16th of December, General Usmani, who was the self-styled general of the Mukti Bahani, that is freedom fighters, he did not want to come to Dhaka for the ceremony. He said, I'll go to Sylhet to take the surrender ceremony of the Sylhet garrison. So when the helicopter carrying him on the 16th, approaching Sylhet, Sylhet did not know that Dhaka had surrendered.
Okay.
So they shot at the helicopter, and one bullet managed to pierce through the fuselage, killing one Jawan inside and puncturing the main gearbox, and the hot oil spilled on the general and to some of the people there. The pilot had to do a precautionary landing at a place called Fenchuganj.
Fenchuganj, yes, sir. That was secured by the army by then.
Yeah. So the 8th Mountain Division headed by Major General Krishna Rao, who became later on the chief, his division was in Shamsher Nagar, close to Fenchuganj. He sent a rescue party and rescued this General Usmani and his people and the crew. And General Usmani, one of the persons with him was Major Ziaur Rahman, who later on became the president of Bangladesh after Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was assassinated. The next day, I was told in Agartala, go to take a repair party for the helicopter for Fenchuganj, drop the repair party there, go to Shamsher Nagar, pick up General Usmani and his party, take them to Sylhet and come back.
Achha.
So I took them from Fenchuganj, I dropped my repair party, went to Shamsher Nagar, picked up the general and took him to Sylhet and came back. My photograph is there with the Sylhet board at the back.
Sir, I think that is a photograph I have seen Ziaur Rahman with General K.V. Krishna Rao.
General Usmani.
And Sylhet written
Yeah.
behind him, right.
Okay.
Achha.
So that's about all I can talk about. I mean, here we've been giving a lot of
And sir,
talk.
any experience on witnessing the surrender ceremony, that part? Like today is the
We were
16th.
standing in front. We were watching General Niazi and General Arora
Okay.
signing the.
I mean, from this view, right, sir? Or from behind?
From front.
Okay.
I was in front.
Okay.
So our photo is not there, but Krishnamurti's photo is there because he's pushing General Rekab and getting to the, like we call it, photo bombing.
Achha.
Anyway, what we did was we saw General Arora giving him the pen, and Ziaji tried to sign and the pen wouldn't sign, wouldn't work.
Achha.
So then, the same thing, doing this, and then,
Like this, I
Yeah.
would say.
yeah, I was this side.
Achha.
I was this side. Okay, so the Bengali lawyer gave him his pen, and with that pen he signed. Then we saw a token surrender thing was General Niazi taking out his holster with the gun and handing it over to General Arora, and a platoon of Pakistani soldiers lined up and laid down the arms, and the platoon of Indian Army picked up those arms as
Okay.
a token of surrender. And the Mukti Bani wanted to get their hands on the General Niazi, but I think the army was too quick. They put him in the jeep and quickly whisked him away. Otherwise, there would have been, I don't know what would have happened to General Niazi.
Right. And another thing, sir, like as you have spoken about the present dispensation of Bangladesh and how much it is very difficult to digest, even for me, like uh, doing my own research on 71 war, it does feel a bit difficult about this growing friendship between Bangladesh and Pakistan.
You
What do you
see,
think
when
about that, sir?
on the 15th of March 71, when Bhutto, Tika Khan, Yahya Khan were in Dhaka, Tika Khan told General Niazi and the other people there, rape every woman. So 20 years hence, we'll have only Pathans and no Bengalis. So I think that has worked for him. Now these are the same Pathans who are now wanting to become friendly with Pakistan. I think that is why this change of scenario has taken place in Bangladesh. I mean, toppling a founder member of Bangladesh, toppling his statue, demolishing his house, demolishing his museum, I think that was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
Right, sir.
And if you remember, there were quite a lot of people talking about from armed defense officers telling, voicing the opinion, saying what we gained in the battlefield, we lost on the diplomatic table. That means we did not take anything in return from Pakistan for giving away the 93,000 prisoners of war.
Right.
We could have bargained for Siachen, or we could have bargained for some other portion of chicken neck or whatever it is, so that we would not have had the Siachen glacier today. What we are spending lakhs and crores of money to maintain that Siachen glacier. But as told to me by one senior journalist, he says this was done basically because Indira Gandhi took a promise from Bhutto that you will not harm Sheikh Mujibur Rahman because Bangladesh economy is zero. They don't have a charismatic leader like Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. We require somebody like him to lead the country. So don't harm him. So that was the promise she took from him. But afterwards, when I reconnected things, it was not correct because Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was already in Bangladesh on 15th January 1972. The Simla agreement was later, much later in June, July 72.
Right.
So that I don't think is correct. So I do not know whether it was that journalist was told to say this because to appease the armed forces people, but that's not true, I think.
Right, sir.
I suppose it was Bhutto's diplomatic superiority in trying to get them across. He told Indira Gandhi, don't take them back. Because he said, your treatment has softened these people and they might spoil the regular troops.
Oh, what?
You treated them so nicely, they become soft. But then she said, I can't handle so many people, just take them back. So,
I mean, General Manek Shaw going to their langar and tasting their food. So that was indeed.
and our officers' wives going and speaking to them. Yeah, that was, I think, one of the best things. Like even United Nations people, they realize Indian mission abroad are doing the best. We not only empathize with them, we help them set up small-scale industries and whatnot, besides, of course, protecting them from enemy forces.
Right, right. And sir, before, our conclusion, I would like to know about the total amount of flying hours in your career, sir.
I've done about 8,000 hours.
8,000 on to all the aircraft. Helicopters.
I was an instructor. I've flown the training aircraft and helicopters. Helicopters maximum I've flown, and I don't regret not being a helicopter pilot. And I love this machine. especially the Russian helicopter Mi-4, the Mi-8, lovely mission. They taught,
Mi-17s, 35.
but not that much.
Okay.
Yes. But by the time you become senior, you fly less.
Hmm.
So Mi-17 and Mi-17 V5 and all came much later. So
Right.
I did not have much opportunity to fly them. But Mi-4, Mi-8, I've got a lot of experience. And I've flown Indira Gandhi, Margaret Thatcher, Jayavardhane, Robert Mugabe, Venkatraman, Zail Singh, Sanjeeva Reddy, a lot of top people. And VIP flying is not easy. It's tension ridden. Well, somebody wants to knock off the Prime Minister, you become collateral damage. Yeah.
Right, sir. It's a wonderful talk, sir, and wonderful experience you have that you shared with me. And I would say again, sir, 16 December, thank you for your services.
Thank you. Thank you so much.